There's a reason why people who call themselves super empaths end up struggling the most when they encounter a narcissist. By nature, they are caring, giving, deeply understanding, and endlessly patient. They have this ability to feel others' emotions almost as if those emotions were their own. And while that is a gift, it is also the very trait that narcissists exploit the most. A narcissist thrives on control, manipulation, and emotional chaos. And when they meet someone who is naturally wired to absorb pain and keep giving, it feels like an open playground for their toxic behavior. But here's the truth. What actually flips the dynamic upside down is when the empath learns the one skill that makes all the difference: boundaries. Boundaries are not walls. Boundaries are not cruelty. Boundaries are not about punishing the other person. Boundaries are about protecting yourself, preserving your energy, and respecting your own worth. And for a super empath, setting boundaries is not just about self-care, it's about survival. When you learn to draw those lines clearly and unapologetically, something fascinating happens. The narcissist no longer has access to your energy the way they used to. They no longer have that emotional feeding ground where they can dump their toxicity and then sit back while you clean up the mess. And nothing tortures a narcissist more than losing the ability to control someone they thought would always stay under their spell. Let me make this clear. Boundaries are not a suggestion, they are a necessity. Every time you allow someone to cross a line without speaking up, you teach them that your feelings don't matter. Every time you say yes when your entire body is screaming no, you reinforce the idea that their needs are more important than your well-being. And every time you forgive without change, you invite more of the same hurt back into your life. A super empath who learns this lesson begins to shift the dynamic completely. Because once you stop giving endless chances, once you stop playing the rescuer, the narcissist finds themselves face to face with something they cannot manipulate: your strength. Think about it. A narcissist wants attention, whether it's praise or conflict, whether it's admiration or drama. It doesn't matter if the energy is positive or negative. What matters is that they are at the center of your focus. Boundaries take that focus away. Boundaries say, I will not engage when you try to provoke me. Boundaries say, I will not respond to manipulation tactics. Boundaries say, I am no longer willing to be your emotional punching bag. That is torture for someone who thrives on reaction, because your silence, your calm refusal to play the game, leaves them with nothing to feed on. But here's the challenge. Boundaries feel hard for empaths, because saying no feels selfish, walking away feels cruel, holding your ground feels like you're abandoning someone who is hurting. Yet the truth is, you are not abandoning anyone. You are saving yourself. You are finally choosing you. And every time you choose you, the narcissist feels the ground beneath them shake. They realize they no longer have power over your life, your choices, or your emotions. Boundaries are also about consistency. You cannot set a boundary one day and then break it the next when guilt creeps in. You cannot tell someone you won't tolerate disrespect and then let them slide the moment they test you. Boundaries work only when you hold them firmly, when you stand tall in your decision, when you refuse to let guilt talk you out of what you know is necessary. For a narcissist, that consistency is unbearable because their entire strategy is built on testing limits, pushing buttons, calling and finding cracks in your resolve. When they find none, they crumble. The real power of boundaries is that they don't just protect you in the moment. They transform you. They teach you how to stand tall, how to own your worth, and how to stop apologizing for existing. They rewire the way you see yourself from someone who absorbs pain to someone who deflects toxicity with strength. And as you grow stronger, as you keep those boundaries firm, you stop being the person the narcissist once knew. You stop being the easy target. You stop being the endless well of forgiveness. You become untouchable. And here's the part that most empaths don't realize at first: boundaries are not just about dealing with the narcissist. They ripple out into every area of your life. When you learn to say no here, you find it easier to say no everywhere. When you learn to cut off manipulation in this relationship, you stop tolerating in friendships, at work, and family dynamics. Boundaries are not just lines. They're a declaration of self-respect. They are the ultimate announcement that you know your value and you will no longer allow anyone, narcissist or otherwise, to diminish it. A narcissist cannot stand boundaries because boundaries are the exact opposite of what they crave: endless access, endless attention, endless control. When you deny them that access, they spiral. They become frustrated, they become desperate, and to them that is torture. But to you it is freedom. It is the first step toward reclaiming your peace, your clarity in your life. Boundaries are not optional. They are the weapon of a super empath who has finally decided to step into their own power. They are how you flip the script, how you take back control, and how you finally show the narcissist that their reign is over. One of the greatest strengths a super empath can develop when facing a narcissist is unshakable self-worth. Because here's the truth: narcissists don't just feed on your kindness, they feed on your doubt. They want you second-guessing yourself, questioning your value, looking them for validation that never truly comes. They thrive when you wonder if you're enough, when you bend over backwards to prove your love, your loyalty, your worthiness. But the moment you stop searching for approval outside yourself, the moment you anchor into your own unshakable sense of worth, the game changes completely. Self-worth is not arrogance, and it's not about thinking you're better than anyone else. It's about knowing that you are enough just as you are. It's about realizing that your value is not up for debate, not dependent on someone else's opinion, and not conditional on how perfectly you meet another person's needs. For a narcissist, that is the ultimate nightmare. Because if they cannot manipulate your sense of value, they cannot control you. Think about how many times you found yourself caught in the cycle of proving. You do more, you give more, you tolerate more, all in the hope that maybe, just maybe, they'll finally appreciate you. But they don't, because appreciation isn't their goal, control is. And as long as you keep searching for recognition from them, you hand them the keys to your worth. That is exactly why self-worth must come from within. When you root yourself in the truth that you don't need their approval to be valuable, you take back the power they've been using against you all along. Unshakable self-worth means you stop negotiating with yourself over your right to be respected. You stop asking questions like, maybe I deserve that treatment, or maybe I'm just too sensitive, or maybe if I tried harder, they'd love me better. No, self-worth says you are not too sensitive. You are aware. You are not undeserving. You are human. You are not unlovable. You simply love in ways they cannot understand. And when you carry that truth inside you, the narcissist's words, criticisms, and mind games lose their sting. Here's something important. Self-worth is built through action. You cannot simply tell yourself you're worthy and expect it to stick if your choices say otherwise. If you stay in spaces where you are constantly devalued, your brain gets the message that this is what you deserve. But when you walk away from what dishonors you, when you demand respect, even if it means standing alone, when you say no to manipulation, even if it costs you connection, your actions reinforce your worth in the deepest way possible. Each time you hold the line, you tell yourself, I am worthy of better. And that message grows louder than any lie a narcissist could ever tell you. The narcissist will notice this shift immediately. They'll throw insults. They'll guilt trip you. They'll try to convince you that you're selfish or cold. That's because your unshakable self-worth is torture to them. It means their approval no longer controls you. And without that leverage, they lose the grip they once had. When you no longer chase after their scraps of validation, they're left powerless. That's why self-worth isn't just healing, it's resistance. But here's where many empaths struggle: guilt. When you start valuing yourself, you start saying no more often. You stop overgiving, you stop tolerating mistreatment, and suddenly that guilt creeps in. Am I being cruel? Am I abandoning them? This is where you have to remind yourself, choosing yourself is not cruelty, valuing yourself is not selfishness, protecting your worth is not wrong. The guilt is not proof that you're doing something bad. It's proof that you're breaking an old pattern. And patterns are uncomfortable to break, especially for someone who has lived for so long trying to please and fix everyone else. Unshakable self-worth also changes the way you view rejection. For empaths, rejection can feel devastating because it strikes at the core of that longing to be seen and accepted. But when you build your worth from within, rejection no longer defines you. You realize rejection is not always about you. It's about the other person's inability to meet you where you are. And instead of shrinking, you stand tall because you know that whether they see your value or not, it is still there. There's also a quiet power that comes with unshakable self-worth. It's not loud. It's not boastful, but it's undeniable. You carry yourself differently. You speak with more conviction. You stop over-explaining. You stop begging to be understood. You know who you are, and that certainty radiates. A narcissist may try to tear it down, but your energy tells the truth louder than their words ever could. The transformation that happens when you embrace self-worth is not just internal. It shows up in the way you live your life. You start surrounding yourself with people who treat you well. You start pursuing goals that once felt too big. You stop settling for less than you deserve in every area. And most importantly, you stop tying your value to someone else's treatment of you. You wake up each day knowing your worth is intact, no matter who approves or disapproves. And here's the beauty of it. The stronger your self-worth becomes, the less you even think about the narcissist, because their voice no longer echoes in your mind. Their opinion no longer dictates your choices. Their control no longer shapes your identity. You reclaim yourself fully, and that is the deepest freedom you can ever experience. If there is one thing that truly unsettles a narcissist, it's not confrontation. It's not screaming, it's not revenge, it's indifference. You see, narcissists thrive on reactions. They live for the drama, the conflict, the endless back and forth that keeps you hooked and keeps them in control. They don't care if the attention is positive or negative as long as it's attention. They want you to argue. They want you to explain yourself. They want you to defend your worth, because every word you speak and every ounce of energy you give feeds their ego. But when you stop reacting, when you stop giving them the satisfaction of a response, when you meet their chaos with silence and indifference, it's like starving them of their favorite drug. And that is torture for someone who cannot survive without constant supply. Indifference doesn't mean you don't care about yourself. It means you stop caring about their games. It means you no longer give them the power to pull you in. It means that when they provoke, when they insult, when they try to guilt you, you don't take the bait. You remain calm, steady, and unbothered. And that's what drives them crazy, because in their world, every move is designed to get a rise out of you. If they can make you angry, they win. If they can make you cry, they win. If they can make you beg for their approval, they win. But when you shrug, when you don't flinch, when you walk away as if their tactics mean nothing, they lose the only weapon they ever had over you. For empaths, Indifference feels unnatural. At first, empaths feel deeply. They want to resolve conflict. They want to fix things. They want to understand and be understood. Silence feels cold. Detachment feels cruel. Calling. Not reacting feels. But what you must realize is that indifference is not cruelty. It's protection. It's a way of saying, I refuse to let you play with my emotions anymore. It's a decision to stop handing over the keys to your peace of mind every time the narcissist rattles the cage. Indifference is strength disguised as stillness. Think about how many times you've been pulled into arguments you didn't want, conversations that went in circles, accusations that made no sense. Hours wasted. Tears shed, energy drained, all because you felt the need to defend yourself against someone who never intended to understand you. That cycle ends when you practice indifference. You no longer explain yourself to someone committed to misunderstanding you. You no longer fight battles with someone who thrives on chaos. You simply stop showing up to the fight. And nothing unsettles a narcissist more than realizing they are swinging at empty air. Indifference is also about emotional detachment. It doesn't mean you become cold-hearted, but it does mean you stop attaching your worth to how they treat you. You stop reading between the lines of their silence. You stop analyzing their mixed signals. You stop waiting for their approval. Calling. You stop giving meaning to every little gesture, every hot and cold moment, every breadcrumb they throw your way. You see it for what it is, manipulation, and you treat it with the only response it deserves as none. That is what breaks their power. Because when you detach, they can no longer control your emotional highs and lows. They can no longer toy with your self-esteem. They can no longer pull you into their storm. Well, and here's the thing, narcissists fear indifference more than hatred. Hatred still means you care. Hatred still means they have space in your mind. Hatred still means they have influence over your emotions. But indifference is silence, distance, and freedom. It's the absence of energy. It's the absence of attention. It's the absence of importance. Calling. To a narcissist who needs to be the center of your world, being treated as insignificant is unbearable. When you practice indifference, you stop reacting to the push and pull. You don't chase when they withdraw. Calling. You don't crumble when they criticize. You don't celebrate their fleeting affection like it's gold. You keep living your life as if their actions are irrelevant. And in doing so, you reclaim your power. Calling. You show them that their approval is no longer your oxygen. You show them that your life is full, whole, and valuable without them. And that realization is the one thing they cannot stand. Calling. But indifference is not just about what you don't do. It's about what you do instead. It's about redirecting your energy away from the narcissist and toward yourself. Instead of spending hours replaying their words, you spend hours building your goals. Instead of crying over their manipulation, you invest in your growth. Instead of trying to figure them out, you figure yourself out. Indifference frees up space in your mind and heart, and that space becomes the foundation for your healing and your empowerment. Indifference is also consistency. You cannot ignore them one day and then break down the next. You cannot stay silent once and then over-explain the next time they bait you. They thrive on cracks in the armor, so your strength must be steady. Calling. You must practice indifference until it becomes second nature. At first, it feels forced. At first, it feels like you're holding back words you want to scream. But over time, indifference becomes peace. Calling. You realize that you don't need to engage. You realize that silence protects your energy more than words ever could. You realize that not everything deserves your response. The beauty of indifference is that it doesn't just torture the narcissist, it heals you. It teaches you that you can choose peace over conflict. It teaches you that your energy is precious. It teaches you that you don't have to respond to every insult, every manipulation, every provocation. You can walk away, and in doing so, you regain the calm that they tried to steal. Indifference is not weakness. It is the ultimate weapon. It's how you starve the narcissist of the one thing they crave most, your attention. It's how you take back your power without saying a word. It's how you show them that their control is gone, their tactics are useless. And their importance in your life has vanished. There comes a point in every empath's journey when the pain inflicted by a narcissist feels unbearable. The sleepless nights, the endless overthinking, the questioning of your own worth, the way your heart feels heavy because no matter how much love you gave, it was never enough. That pain is real. It leaves scars. It leaves you wondering if you'll ever trust again, if you'll ever feel whole again, if you'll ever see yourself the same way again. And yet, hidden within that pain is something extraordinary, the potential to turn it into power, because pain can either break you or build you. And when you decide to use it as fuel, it transforms you into someone unstoppable. Pain is a teacher that no one asks for, but it teaches the lessons that nothing else can. When you've been manipulated, betrayed, devalued, and discarded, you gain a clarity that comfort could never give you. You begin to see patterns. You begin to recognize red flags you once ignored. You begin to understand the depths of your own resilience. Pain pushes you to grow in ways you never would have chosen, but growth is the gift it leaves behind. And that growth, that strength, that wisdom, that's the power you carry forward. Turning pain into power starts with a shift in perspective. Instead of asking, why did this happen to me? You start asking, what can I learn from this? You stop seeing yourself as a victim of their cruelty and start seeing yourself as a survivor who endured and came out stronger. Every tear you shed, every time you picked yourself up after being knocked down, every moment you kept going even when you felt broken, that becomes proof of your strength. The narcissist may have wanted to destroy you, but instead, they revealed the warrior inside you. There is a power that comes from knowing you have survived what was meant to break you. That power is quiet, but it is unshakable. It shows up in the way you carry yourself, Calling in the way you no longer tolerate what you once accepted, in the way you refuse to shrink to make others comfortable. The very pain that once made you question your worth becomes the foundation of your confidence. Because if you can survive manipulation, gaslighting, betrayal, and abandonment, you can survive anything. That realization shifts the way you see yourself and the way you approach life. Calling pain also gives you empathy on a deeper level. You already felt deeply as an empath, but now your compassion carries wisdom. You can recognize when someone else is struggling in silence, calling when someone else is caught in a toxic cycle, when someone else is questioning their worth. And because you've lived it, you can speak truth into their darkness. You can help others find their way out. That is another way pain turns into power. It equips you to lift others. What once isolated you becomes the bridge you use to connect with and empower people who are still finding their strength. The narcissist wanted you weak. They wanted you dependent. They wanted you questioning yourself forever. But when you rise out of the pain, you become someone they never expected, independent, strong, and fearless. You learn to trust your intuition, that inner voice they tried so hard to silence. You learn to value your boundaries, that shield they kept testing. You learn to respect your own needs, calling those very needs they told you were selfish. The pain they caused becomes the training ground where you built your resilience, your clarity, and your self-respect. Turning pain into power also means no longer giving your story to them. The narrative is no longer about what they did to you. It's about what you did with it. Calling, you stop centering them in your mind and instead center yourself. They may be part of your past, but they are no longer the author of your life. You take back the pen. You write the story of someone who was hurt but healed, someone who was broken but rebuilt stronger, someone who was silenced but found their voice again. That shift reclaims not only your identity, but also your future. There's also a fire that comes from pain. The fire to prove to yourself that you are not who they said you were. The fire to create a life so full, so joyful, so free that their shadow no longer lingers over you. That fire fuels your goals, your dreams, your passions. It pushes you to chase things you once thought were out of reach. Because when you've been through hell and survived, you stop being afraid of risk. You stop being afraid of failure. You stop being afraid of standing alone. You realize you've already endured worse than any challenge ahead of you, and that courage propels you forward. Pain becomes power when you refuse to let it define you negatively and instead let it refine you. Calling, it sharpens your vision, it strengthens your spirit, it shows you what matters and what doesn't. You stop wasting energy on people who drain you. You stop apologizing for taking up space. Calling, you stop begging to be loved by those incapable of loving you. Instead, you choose yourself, you choose peace, you choose purpose. And every time you choose those things, you prove that the pain did not win, you did. The most powerful part of turning pain into power is the freedom it gives you, because when you alchemize your suffering into strength, the narcissist no longer has any hold over you. Calling, they can no longer haunt your thoughts, control your emotions, or shape your future. The pain they cause becomes the very reason you are now stronger, wiser, and freer than ever before. And that freedom is something no one can take away from you.